What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to our weekly Pokemon card auction recap. I am your host, Top 10 Pokemon. I'm so glad you've joined me today. I have a ton of auctions to go through with you. We saw several, let's say, vintage booster boxes that we don't typically see come by. We're going to see what kind of prices they sold for. And we saw the sale of an incomplete Holo Error Japanese Shining Mew with a price tag that will blow your socks off. So tons of amazing Pokemon card auctions to go through. Please stay tuned to the very end. I would appreciate it. Folks, help me get to 30,000 subs by being a subscriber and giving the video a like to show your support. I would really appreciate it. So let's jump into this auction recap with a little bit of modern. Here we have the Charizard EX Special Art Rare from the newest Japanese Shiny Treasure EX. In PSA 10, we saw a sale throughout both PSA CGC, and BGS. Which one do you think sold for the most? Well, you'll probably guess it. Here is a PSA 10 example that sold for $420 this week, and we saw a CGC 10 pristine copy sell for $475. But the BGS 10 pristine example still reigns supreme, selling for $690. Up next, a couple of cards from the XY era. Here is a Mega Gyarados EX from Breakpoint, PSA 10, sold for $129. Here we have a promo Battle Festa Pikachu card in PSA 10, sold for $1,225. From the Black and White era, we have this 15th anniversary Japanese Full Art Pikachu that sold as a PSA 10 for $1,925. And then we saw numerous modern and vintage booster boxes come by. Here is an XY base set booster box that sold for $1,125. Here is an XY Phantom Forces box that sold for $2,124. From the Black and White era, we saw several Black and White booster boxes hitting some pretty mega numbers. Here's a Black and White Emerging Powers booster box that sold for $1,451. And then here is a Black and White Noble Victories booster box that sold for $2,225. And then here we have a Black and White Dark Explorers booster box that sold for an even $4,000. So yeah, Black and White boxes hitting some pretty high numbers this week. Now on to a couple of modern cards that didn't age well, at least this year. We go all the way back to summertime, around June. We saw the Scream promo cards hitting record numbers. We saw the Pikachu in PSA 10 sell for $4,200, and we saw the Mimikyu Scream promo card at one point sell for $9,300. So let's check in on how they're doing in today's market. The Pikachu has recently sold for $2,890, while the Mimikyu most recently sold for $4,595. Effectively cutting in half the value of this Mimikyu in a matter of 6 months. And, you know, these cards, for some reason, were just really hyped up back then, and yeah, they drastically fell in value, but still, $4,595 is still a nice sum of money, but what are you gonna do? On to some vintage cards. Very vintage here. We have a 1997 Pikachu Prism card in PSA 10 that sold for $856. Here we have a CGC 10 Unlimited base set Charizard. However, this one was titled pristine condition, and it's not quite. This is a Gem Mint copy that is sold for $2,905. We saw a couple of notable sales from Rocket Set. Here is a first edition Dark Blastoise in PSA 10 that sold for $2,476. We saw the Unlimited Dark Charizard sell for $1,375, while the first edition copy sold for $3,050. We have a CGC 10 Gem Mint Dark Magneton that sold for $720. And this is an absolute monster card to get in a PSA 10. The most difficult card, I believe, to grade from first edition Team Rocket, as a PSA 10 example goes for several thousands of dollars. But a CGC 10, about $720. We saw a first edition Lugia come by yet again from Neo Genesis as a CGC 10, and it sold for $5,100. Here's a first edition Umbreon from Neo Discovery, also got a CGC 10 and sold for $2,325. Here's a CGC 10 Suicune from Neo Revelation, sold for $1,683, while the first edition Entei in PSA 10 from Neo Revelation sold for about $5,500 US. Here we have a WotC Pwcc Black Star promo birthday Pikachu card. They got a PSA 10 and sold for $1,426. Here we have a World's Champions First Edition Flareon Gold Star Japanese card that sold for $2,552. And then we saw a couple of more very interesting pieces of sealed product. Here is a sealed EX Sandstorm booster box that sold for $10,257. And what's interesting about this particular set is that there really isn't too many bangers that you can get from this box. This is, there's no Charizard or anything like that. The EX cards are pretty meh in terms of like PSA 10 values, but what really makes this box super expensive is the scarcity of it. You just never see these boxes come by sealed, which is why it fetched the 5-figure premium. Here we have another EX era booster box. This one is the EX Power Keepers box that sold for $10,700. And you can get some pretty big bangers out of this box. You have the Charizard Holo along with the Reverse Holo. You have a couple of Gold Star cards that fetch a very high price. So this one you can get a little bit more out of than the Sandstorm box. Here we have a sealed Gold Strip Brushfire theme deck. And if you don't know what the significance of a Gold Strip theme deck, it pretty much means that there are shadowless cards in this deck, including a shadowless Ninetales and the potential, I believe, for a no damage error Ninetales card, which is very valuable. This deck sold for $930 this week. And then here we have an Australian Jungle Booster box with the red logo here. And you'll also notice that the Wizards logos are different as well. They are actually curved on this box. And it sold for $8,988. And then on to a couple of notable PWCC sales. Not much from Heritage or Golden this week. We have a PSA 10 base set Japanese Venusaur that sold for $900, while a PSA 10 Unlimited copy sold for $900 as well. Here we have a Japanese base set Blastoise that sold for $960, while the Unlimited copy in PSA 10 sold for $1,770. Here we have a CGC 10 Perfect Scizor Holo from Aquapolis, a Pop 1 card that sold for $900. And then here we have a CGC 10 Pristine Japanese Charizard from Stormfront, also a Pop 1 card that sold for $1,020. Here we have a CGC 10 Perfect Japanese Fossil Mew card that sold for $1,560. Here is a 20,000 point Jolteon Gold Star Japanese promo card that sold for $3,120. And then here, folks, this might have been a really, really good deal. It is the complete first edition Team Rocket set graded in PSA 9. So all 83 cards from this set sold for $4,920. And that includes the Charizard, the Blastoise, the Dragonite, the Raichu. A lot of big hits from this set, and sold for almost $5,000. Seems like a pretty good deal to get your hands on a complete graded copy of the set. What do you think? And then getting down to our final two mega auctions, here is another first edition Pichu Holo from Neo Genesis that sold for a staggering $15,000 this week. This is a Pop 31 card from the set. And there are actually cards from the set that are way lower in their Pop reports, like Typhlosion and the Slow King, and the metal, even the Metal Energy is a lot lower than this, but man, that Pichu Holo is very sought after. 15 grand. And the auction of the week would have to go to the Shining Mew. Not this one though. This one here is a regular old PSA 10 copy that sold for $3,240. No, I mean this one right here, the incomplete Holo Error Shining Mew in PSA 10, a Pop 1 card thus far that sold for $19,800. And this is very familiar from an auction that I did month or two ago with the incomplete error Fossil Dragonite Holo that sold for quite a sum of money. So what do you think of this sale, folks? Is it ridiculous? Is it justified? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, folks. There weren't quite as many auctions as we've had in recent weeks, especially from last week, but I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know what you think below. That's all I got for you today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in my next one.